This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Just doing her job has meant at times talking with Diane Keaton, Salma Hayek, Jason Segel, Bryan Cranston, and many other actors and Hollywood types. She's a writer and TV producer, and that's when she's had that exposure. Her credits include Freaks and Geeks. Let's try that again.
That's a different show. I didn't catch that one.
Stay tuned. Her credits include Freaks and Geeks, Friends, Desperate Housewives, and Breaking Bad. She has also written pilots for Fox, CBS, and Nickelodeon. And that definitely sounds like the fun stuff.
Yeah, because as we're about to get a peek behind the Hollywood curtain, it's not all stars and glamour. Our next guest in the opening pages of her book writes about how after retiring at the ripe age of 38, Carol, she couldn't talk about her career because the memories, quote, were too painful.
She lays it out all in a new book. Patty Lynn is with us, former WGA, Writers Guild of America, writer and producer. Her book entitled End Credits, How I Broke Up with Hollywood, and she joins us on Zoom from Los Angeles. Patty, it is a delight to have you here with us. Tell us, I'm not even quite sure where to start, but you start and you kind of get it out there about how saying that you couldn't talk about your career, you know, after you retired and you were young, you weren't even 40, because you say the memories were too painful. And I kind of want to start as you did. Why is that? Because I think initially I thought, oh, great, we're going to have a Hollywood type. She's going to talk about, you know, working with all the stars and how much fun it was. But I know, working in media, it's never all rosy. And
Yes, it is.
most of the times. Anyway, tell us about why your memories were too painful.
Well, I think part of the reason that it was hard to talk about was because people have an image of what it's like to work in entertainment as being cool and glamorous. And so when you tell them something that doesn't fit that image, it can be very hard for people to understand. And especially when a lot of the things that I, wrote about in the book and that drove me to quit the business are things that are not, the big clickbaity kind of headlines of, it's not like somebody threw a stapler at my head or something. The things that I'm talking about are often things like, just killing myself to write a script in 3 or 4 days and then turning it in and having my boss just say, you know what, we've decided to go in a different direction. Can you write a whole nother script in a day? And stuff like that. Or having my scripts just rewritten without my knowledge or consent, without ever telling me, why they're doing it, without ever giving me a chance to rewrite things myself or learn. So these are things that that I wrote about in the book, and hopefully when readers read it, they will get a better understanding of what it can be like for a writer in Hollywood, where it doesn't fit this image that everyone seems to have.
Well, let's take a step back and just get an idea, because we do have a good bit of time with you. How did you get into this industry? Because people are clamoring to get into this industry. People move, from, all over the world to get a shot at being part of Hollywood.
You're always the type of person that's popular at cocktail parties, right? They want to know what you do and how you do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. I was the daughter of Taiwanese immigrants. I didn't know anybody who worked in entertainment. I didn't even know that was something that you could do. But I watched a lot of TV because I was a latchkey kid. And so I watched TV for hours and hours every day and was just kind of steeped in pop culture. And then I also developed a talent for writing at a very young age. I was in 3rd grade when I discovered that I liked to write stories. And so those two interests kind of intersected eventually. But the way that I actually broke into the business was that I was I was trying to get tickets to Late Night with David Letterman. I was a huge fan of the show, and I was in New York just sightseeing, and decided to, on the spur of the moment, just try to get tickets. and the person that I approached was an NBC page who I ended up dating for 10 years. But he was somebody that, he didn't have any showbiz connections. He was just a guy from Queens, and, he was working in NBC. And so I started talking to him about how would a person get an internship, because I knew that the Letterman show had college interns. And he said, just write a letter to the producer. And I thought, really? It's that easy? So that's what I did. They brought me in for an interview, and I got an internship there. And I just fell in love with entertainment. I just loved the hustle and bustle and the feeling of actually being able to contribute to this thing that I had so loved, my whole life.
That first job, were you kind of in awe? Like, I remember my first broadcast job, and I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was in an amusement park. Like, it was just so much fun. And I still feel that way a lot of times when I come to the office. But was it all that you kind of thought it could be, and even more initially?
I definitely had that kind of feeling of, wow, I'm in a dream right now. I often felt that way. And it was a lot of fun. It was, I think that one of the things that drew me into show business was this kind of fun, casual atmosphere that they had with each other. There was a lot of camaraderie and a lot of laughing, and it made coming to work a fun experience. But also, being able to contribute to the actual show was such a thrill. As an intern at the Letterman show, a lot of what we did was we ran around getting people their coffee. but I was a research intern, so I actually got to contribute to looking up the guests that were coming on the show, and being able to suggest questions for David Letterman to ask them on the show. And, occasionally those things would actually get into the script, and it was very exciting.
Can you talk a little bit about your first job, and in retrospect, how you felt about being hired? The staff writer job, the martial law job.
Yeah. Well, when I came to Hollywood and I started, trying to make it as a writer, what I wanted to do was I wanted to write for dramas like relationship shows, like 30 something. That was one of my favorite shows when I was growing up. But when you're out there pounding the pavement as a new untested writer, you have to kind of just go with what's available to you, and the job that I happened to get an offer on was a show that was it was martial law. I don't know if your viewers are going to know what that is, but it was an action show on CB. It was an action show and a cop show, and it also had some martial arts in it. And so none of these things were things that I intended to write. It was just not the perfect fit for me, but it was a paying writing job. And so I did it. And, I learned very early on that, from that job, that I was going to need to have a thick skin if I was going to survive in the business.
We're talking with Patty Lin, as we said, former WGA writer and producer. Her new book out is called End Credits, How I Broke Up with Hollywood, and she's still with us on Zoom from Los Angeles, California. Patty, when we were talking on our planning call this morning, one of the things that we knew we wanted to ask you about was the Hollywood writers' strike and how you think about that. And we'd love for you to weigh in.
Well, I stepped away from the business 15 years ago, and it's really disappointing to see that after all this time, things haven't gotten much better, and that the writers have to go on strike again. So, here's the thing, stuff has changed a lot since I worked in TV. streaming business has changed kind of the entire way that the business is structured, and I feel for the writers. I mean, I stand behind them. I hope they get what they're asking, what they're fighting for. But change is really hard, and especially when there are entities who really only care about the bottom line. And they should care about the workers who are making this content, not just because it's the decent thing to do,
right?
But because if writers can't sustain a living, if they're pushed out of the business because of abusive workplace conditions, or just not being able to make ends meet, there's going to be no one left to make all the great TV shows and movies that we all love. And so I think our culture will really suffer for that.
Can I ask you something? And I think we said you retired at the ripe age of 38. That's really young. And you said you've been out of the industry for 15 years. I'm assuming you've done something else since, but some people might be hearing this and saying, sounds like she did okay. She retired pretty young. I mean, what is the compensation like for someone who writes for,
the biggest shows around?
Yeah.
Shows that are still being sold to streaming services, like Friends.
And Breaking Bad.
Well, I mean, I was never rich. Yeah. I was able to live a comfortable life, but I never even bought a house. I certainly didn't buy a yacht. And I think what people don't realize, and what the strike is hopefully making more people aware of, is that when you are a writer in Hollywood, it's not a steady job. You go from job to job, and sometimes there are long periods of time between jobs where you're not making anything, which is why residual payments are so important when you're a TV writer. And also, there's a lot of writing that you do and you're not even getting paid for it. This happened when I was working in TV, and I think it's happening even more now, where you are developing an idea and you're working for months and months, pitching ideas and actually sitting at your desk all day writing, but you're not getting a paycheck because you don't get paid until the show gets picked up. So it's stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I think hopefully people are going to be more aware of that. It's very hard to make a living if that's what, because I hear about writers, who have to take side jobs now to be able to pay their rent. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine what that's like, because when I was working in TV, I had no free time to take a side job. That job was much more than a full-time job. You're expected to work super long hours and sort of give up everything for that work. So I feel for the writers. I really hope that things get better.
Do you think that the writers are do you think they should be threatened by AI?
I think that AI, threatened is kind of it's a loaded word. As a writer, I don't feel threatened by AI because I value what I do, and I know that ChatGPT can't do what I do. You know what I mean? But the thing with AI is that the way that it works is that it takes material that's already out there to generate something new. And the material that it's taking from was written by human beings. So that material, the writers who wrote that should be, they should have consent. They should be able to give their consent for that to be used. Right. And they should also get compensated for it. To me, it's a copyright issue. So I think that's right. The issue around AI is very much about that. It's not so much, AI is going to take over all of our jobs. In some cases that is true, but what human writers do is something that I don't think a computer is ever going to be able to do.
Patty, just have about a minute and a half left. I just want to do a couple of rapid rounds. Favorite moment in the industry? Just quickly.
That would be probably when I was on set for my Freaks and Geeks episode, and we shot a scene where one of the characters farted. and yeah, I mean, amazing, right?
Right,
It just
it happens.
blows my mind that it was, but it's amazing that we were able to put that on NBC, right? I mean, it's just, I still am like in awe of that. That was a super fun day.
I can imagine. Lots of takes, perhaps. Most difficult moment. Most difficult moment. Quickly though, like 20 seconds. That's tough. Sorry, that's pressure.
There were so many of them. I'm sorry. There were so many of them.
A low point.
Most difficult.
Yeah.
A low point. I would have to say when I was on set supervising the shoot of an episode that I had written, and my boss had rewritten some pages from it, didn't tell me. I didn't know about it. Came to the set, people started yelling at me because some people got the pages, some people didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that there was a rewrite, and it was just so humiliating.
This was Breaking Bad, right?
Yep.
People are going to have to read the book. Really quickly, naive question of the year. Lots of ego in just 20 seconds. Was there a lot? Were you surrounded by it?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's no surprise, right? That's no surprise. But I think that, that there are a lot of people who are extremely talented who are working in Hollywood. And just because you're extremely talented doesn't mean you have to have a big ego.
Be a jerk, right? Yeah, got it. Hey, listen, fun spending some time with you, Patty Lynn. Check out our new book, End Credits, How I Broke Up with Hollywood. You are listening and watching Bloomberg Radio.